Hey fellas, how's it hanging?
Hi, how are you, fuckers?
This guy is really tired, so this video is probably going to be pretty short, but I just happened to see somebody share this article, which is called the Anti-News Network. I don't really understand what that is, but
They're one of those, sites
yeah,
the government would call fake news, I guess.
I suppose.
I don't know if I buy it too much, but
I don't know if I do either, so we're basically, we just found this, so pretty much we're going to be reading this, like, right out of the fucking box, so,
right out of the fucking box.
So, an ICE agent commits suicide in New York City, leaves a suicide note revealing government's plans to round up and disarm Americans. So, this was, I guess, updated. I guess it's been updated a bunch of times.
Well, here's the thing, what I'm seeing about this article. I mean, these are all things that are laws that you can look up.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much that, I can't just go Google and find out, like, the, Rex 84, the executive order, which they can take over everything. That's,
Actually,
you can look that all up.
they,
Which is funny, because Obama signed that executive order. I didn't know about that. Oh, that's the NDAA.
Yeah.
One of the NDAAs.
But, in this article, they show a bunch of
Republicans.
No, they show a bunch of rebuttals to what we will be showing later, which is a Snopes article that basically tried to say that this was a illegitimate source. So we'll see what they have to say about that. But first, let's run through the story. This guy commits suicide in New York City and supposedly left a suicide note that revealed plans for the federal government to round up and disarm American citizens amid economic collapse. After writing a lengthy suicide note exposing terrifying plans the government has for American citizens, a U.S. Customs agent walked onto a pier in New York City and blew his brains out. Sources inside the New York Police Department have revealed to Superstation 95 that the contents of the suicide note found on the body, and they are utterly frightening, supposedly.
How come they don't have a picture of the suicide note?
I don't know. We'll see what's happening here. It says the note, which it has been written over the course of a full week in advance, outlines the officer's choice to shoot himself. Quote, "The America I grew up in and cherished has been murdered by its own federal government. Our Constitution has become meaningless and our laws politicized so badly they are no longer enforced except for political purposes," the note said. Quote, "Our elected officials are, to a person, utterly corrupt and completely devoid of any love or respect for the country who pays them. To them, everything is about getting and keeping power, making illicit money from backroom deals, excuse me." So he's an immigrant and customs enforcement officer. So basically, he deports people. So he was 42 years old.
He is the law.
He shot himself with a .40 caliber service pistol inside Pier 40 in Hudson River Park at around 11 a.m. A source at the scene described how the officer calmly walked into the park, took out his pistol, and shot himself in the head. And his offices were nearby to the scene of the... Okay, so he was basically rushed to the hospital, and they were unable to save him, but the ICE released a statement, basically...
It's ice, by the way.
When it happened. Tragically, a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement deportation officer from the New York field office suffered a self-inflicted gunshot wound and has passed away. It added, "The agency is not releasing further details pending notification of the officer's next of kin." According to the suicide note, the officer said, "I was hired to enforce the law to capture and deport people who come to this country against our laws. But now, if I dare to do that, I face being suspended or fired because our president refuses to faithfully execute the duties of his office. Instead, I come to work each day and collect a paycheck twice a month for intentionally doing little to nothing. I cannot and will not be a party to this fraud. This is usurpation," fucking hate that word, "of the law and or to the despicable politicians betraying our nation, the note continued.
So, I was just skimming down that article. I know this, but apparently they're talking about gas chambers and prisons.
Yeah, so this note mentions FEMA camps. But basically it says the ICE's Office of Professional Responsibilities is reviewing the matter and coordinating with the New York Police Department on the investigation. The agent worked at a field office in Lower Manhattan, just blocks away from the scene of the shooting. So mentions, quote, FEMA camps, end quote, for Americans. In the suicide note, the officer revealed what he claimed are terrifying plans the feds have been finalizing. Quote, if the American people knew what this government is planning, they would rise up and overthrow it. If I or anyone else in the federal government revealed what is coming, we would be killed anyway, so now I will reveal what I know. We and federal law enforcement have been drilling for several years to control riots and upsprings from a coming financial collapse and widespread bank failures. The drills involve life-size images of American men, even women and children, whom we are told to shoot for practice and to get used to it. We have been told that the economy is terminally ill and will fall in 2016. We are also told banks are insolvent and the FDIC doesn't have nearly enough funds to bail out depositors. We are told these events are unavoidable, and it is imperative that the government survive when people rise up over this. When the collapse takes place, detention camps created under FEMA Rex 84 program in the 1980s to house illegal aliens, whom we are going to deport, will instead be used to imprison American citizens whom the government feels constitute a, quote, threat, end quote. American citizens will be rounded up without warrants and imprisoned without trial for God knows how long. These camps have been equipped to carry out Hitler-scale killings, an actual purge of American citizens by the very government which they themselves created and pay for. I cannot be party to this. The note goes on to say talk about state-level National Guard being disarmed by the feds and over 1 billion rounds of ammunition purchased by the feds and the military over-deployed and being shrunk. Quote, the government knows that the military will rise up to stop this, so our military is being deployed overseas, intentionally involved in foreign fights, and deliberately shrunk in size so they cannot be here to help Americans. This is why certain ammunition and weaponry have been removed from state-level National Guard armies, and over 1 billion rounds of hollow-point ammunition have been bought by the federal government. The states themselves have been disarmed of military-grade firepower so they cannot defend themselves from the federal activities. This is also why local police departments have been militarized and provided with armored vehicles and weapons of war, the note says. Which is interesting, because the other day, obviously, I haven't posted that video yet, but we talked about the United Kingdom basically going into martial law. I don't know if this note is real, but basically he's talking about over-militarization of police, and the military being basically the police becoming military and the police, or the military becoming police, excuse me. They're doing that in the United Kingdom, and they've also been doing that in France.
Which doesn't surprise me, and it shouldn't surprise anybody.
It shouldn't really surprise anybody. I mean, there's literal, like, bills where it talks about doing that, like, on purpose.
I mean, I don't buy this shit, but I've seen the fucking executive orders. I think this is just a culmination of that, you know?
Yeah, I think they just use this story of a guy shooting himself to, like, get the recognition that basically all this that has been talked about in this, like, note, supposedly, is technically correct, but, like, I don't know if this guy actually wrote it. We'll find out, because they do rebut, like, most of what Snopes said, which is going to be interesting to read, because we'll see.
Snopes is bullshit.
Yeah.
I know people that religiously go there and they use it for fact checking, which is retarded because they don't do their own fact checking.
Yeah, they just read Snopes fact checking.
That shit's real as fuck, Snopes.
I mean, we basically so here's the deal. Before I keep reading what the note supposedly said. From what Snopes says, which we'll get into that in a minute, we'll skim through that as quickly as possible. I just want to read this note so people can actually, like, hear what the fuck they're talking about. basically Snopes was saying, hey, there was no note found. The New York City Police Department says there's no note found, but I mean, the New York City Police Department is fucked. Like, the Occupy Wall Street shit was terrible. Like, and guess who did it? The New York City Police Department. So, you can't really trust what they say either. I mean, this is basically like, you choose what you want here. Like, this is like, ridiculous. You can believe it or you cannot. Like, this is the world that we're in now. But, anyway, to finish the rest of what this note says, it says, quote, when the inevitable collapse begins to take place, electric power to the entire country will be shut off. I'm
still waiting for that, by the way.
Yeah, same here. As will all forms of communication. All banks will be immediately closed. No one will be able to get any money because all ATMs will be offline. Credit, debit, and EBT cards will no longer function. Anyone without cash will have no way to get any. The emergency alert system will be used to take over all broadcast stations and tell the public this is a result of a cyber attack, which is interesting because that fucking kind of shit is happening right now where, like, I guess the people that are running these emergency alert system places
are just like, getting like, oh, there was you should bring up the nuclear one that just started.
Yeah, the nuclear one. Dude, there's a lot of weird shit going on here.
So apparently today, believe it or not, there was a false nuclear emergency.
Yeah, I remember you sent that to me, and I really was gonna read it, but then I just never really got around to it.
I mean, all there was really to see was the picture, but
yeah. So somebody actually got a picture of it?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
right now.
See it.
Yeah, so there's a false nuclear emergency.
Yeah. But not only that, but
the EAS.
Remember the Trump the Trump April 26th thing?
Yeah, this all happened in New Jersey.
So yeah, this is USA Today. It says authorities emergency alert at New Jersey nuclear plant, a false alarm. So basically they say it's a false alarm. A civil authority has issued a nuclear power plant warning for the following counties/areas. Cumberland, Salem, New Jersey at 8:54 on May 23rd, 2017.
You know, everybody's seen that too.
Yeah. Message from NJ001, 1 out of 1. So
I'd be shitting my pants if I've seen that.
So, they're saying it is a false alarm, which I can kind of believe that, though. I can kind of believe that because it can be easy to, like, I mean, they work off of files, and then you press play and
somebody had to send them.
Well, yeah, true. I mean, they definitely have them set up for if something happens. I think that could be a false alarm. I don't think they were actually going to do that.
But this has been going on, like, all over the country.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. It's not just them.
It's something weird.
I just remembered the emergency alert system thing. I think we made a video about that where it was saying Trump April 26th, and we were like, what the fuck? And then April 26th came around, and nothing really happened, except for the day...
I was hoping.
Was it the day before when they were talking about they were getting the whole entire, like, Senate together?
Yeah.
To come to the White House? Yeah, so something definitely happened on April 26th, but we just didn't get to hear about it.
It was supposedly over North Korea.
Yeah, supposedly over North Korea, but we know more than likely it wasn't. It was some talk about, like, hey, I'm gonna go do some fucked up shit, so you guys
all should watch.
Yeah, you guys should, hey, get involved.
We want you in here. Yeah.
But to continue with this note, because we're basically gonna read the rest of the note. Oh, Jesus, where was I at? Okay. Okay, I think this is it. Yeah, but while the American people patiently await things to get back to normal, the government will unleash roundups of citizens they deem militant or dangerous, with all civilian...
Oh, we're dead.
Yeah. With all civilian communications out and all TV and radio stations taken over by the emergency alert system, by the time the world spreads of what is taking place, the government will have already had the upper hand. And it says, federal prisoners to be gassed to death. The note goes into a wide array of very specific plans and does so in extremely specific detail about what the feds are allegedly planning. For instance, it talks about federal prisons. Quote, every federal prison has been outfitted with lethal gas systems. When things go bad, all prisoners in all prisons will be placed in their cells on lockdown. The prison staff will depart the facility, and a certain designated person will trigger a lethal gas system. All federal prisoners, regardless of their crimes or their sentence, will be gassed to death in their cells. Once the gas clears, the dead will be removed, and the prisons will then be used to house citizens who fight against the federal onslaught. Okay.
Like, there's only even, like, 8 states that have gas in their prisons. I don't know.
I can see that being real. Like, that thing. Where they just gas, like, federal prisoners.
Yeah, like, all that shit's, they're not important anyways.
Yeah.
They're all here for bad reasons. It doesn't matter.
So, this part is about priests recruited to quell opposition. The note makes mention about priests, rabbis, and Celtic from various religions, denominations, have been recruited and trained to quell resistance. So, intent is the government to succeed. They have, They have recruited priests, rabbis, and clergies. Is that clergies? Oh, Jesus. I don't know. From various religions to, quote, appropriate scriptures about, quote, obeying government, end quote. They are being trained to tell people not to fight back, and their best hope is to pray. And then this brings up Executive Order 13603, which is the National Defense Resources Preparedness thing.
Oh, which is a real thing.
Yeah, which is a real thing, and it was signed off by Obama. I've been telling people about this for years, but that's basically martial law. This 10-page document is a blueprint for a federal takeover of the economy. Specifically, Obama plan involves seizing of all commodities and products that are capable of being ingested by either human beings or animals, all forms of energy, all forms of civil transportation, all usable water from all sources.
I guess it's doable.
Yeah. Health resources, drug, biological products, medical devices, materials, facilities, health supplies, services and equipment, forced labor, or induction, as the executive order delicately refers to military conscription. Moreover, federal officials would, quote, issue regulations to prioritize and allocate resources, end quote. So yeah, basically, at any point in time, which this can be used by any president now, it was just an update to a bill that already existed.
Trump's probably going to be the one to do it.
Yeah, I know. But it was a bill before Obama. Like, people like to say, okay, it was just Obama. No, this was a bill that was around since, like, 1950, and it had a different name.
I think it was...
it was probably Truman. It was somebody like that.
It makes sense.
It was a bill that happened before. They laid the groundwork pretty much, and then Obama went in and updated it and basically said, if there is a national security crisis, then I can basically shut down the entire fucking country.
Well, this has been how 9/11 basically created this fear, so...
Well, yeah, but this executive order basically says, hey, I can steal your shit. Like, they'll take your stuff. Like, they were talking about farming equipment, they were talking about taking over production plants. Like, it was crazy, but... So basically,
we don't like what we see.
Yeah, so it says Superstation 95 took a look at this executive order from the government printing office.
Which, if you remember, that was the one place that leaked that one thing. Leaked the Trump shit, supposedly, in the Project Gotham.
What?
I wonder, I wonder if those nuclear things are a byproduct of Project Gotham.
They could be.
That's what my first thought when I seen that this morning.
That would make sense, because it was in the New Jersey area, and it was.
Yeah. That's going on for a while.
Well, yeah.
I don't know though, but makes sense.
Yeah.
To me.
Basically, we're gonna get through this last bit of this note. It says, we in federal law enforcement have been told that government has a full database of so-called, quote, preppers, end quote. Those people will be dealt with first by armed federal agents coming to take their guns, then their food stocks, so food can be redistributed as the government sees fit.
Let me ask you this. Have you ever seen a dot on your mailbox?
Yeah, I've heard of that before. I don't even think that's a thing.
I haven't seen one.
I have. I mean,
Yours?
I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen them before.
I wonder what they're for.
I don't know. I remember when we first moved here. I was really young. But I remember when I first moved here, I remember seeing dots on mailboxes like all the time. Like, but now you don't really see them anymore. It's weird. That is weird. I don't know if that's a thing, but it definitely could be.
I've heard it was. I mean,
yeah, I have too. I remember there were people that, I think it was a fucking police officer too. You know what? I'm starting to think that this is a little less crazy than it seems.
I mean, it's certainly not crazy. They have a law.
Well, no, I mean, this is straight up talking about facts, nigga. Like the Obama thing with that National Defense Preparedness
Authorization
bill.
Act. Yeah.
Yeah, that was real, but that was just updating a bill. He basically just made it better for him if he found some reason to say, okay, we need to change this, basically. Or we need to shut down the country. He pretty much made it better for the government. Because beforehand, I mean, it was still pretty fucked up. Like, they could steal your stuff. But Obama just made it to where, like, you can steal water sources. You can steal people's farms. Like, people who have been working on their farms for 40 fucking years can be thrown out on their ass. So
yeah, no, they don't give a fuck.
They don't give a shit. But even in this article, they say these could be simply insane ramblings.
No, it's definitely marked.
It is not our intent to cause panic or alarm while we expect readers to be intelligent enough to discern this on their own. We feel compelled to point out that these could simply be paranoid ramblings of an insane person who killed himself. On the other hand, these could also be revelations by a person who was so distraught over the ugly truth that he killed himself. We at Superstation 95 just don't know. We urge everyone to stay calm, think rationally, and decide whether or not to make any action to prepare in case this person's suicide note is telling the truth. That's interesting because Snopes made it seem like they just said this is hard fucking fact, and obviously in the original post they said, hey, this could just be bullshit.
Well, I mean, it is partially fact.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if Snopes wants to sit there and say, okay, there was no suicide
Snopes says everything is bullshit, though.
Well, yeah, I know. But even if Snopes wants to say, hey, this note doesn't exist, the point is, I mean, those are, like, that Obama bill is real, dude. It's real. It was really passed.
We read it. We've seen it.
It was an executive order. Nobody had to vote on it. He just wrote that shit into existence. So, you know, it's strange, but they have sources and corroboration section. They show a bunch of stuff. Department of Homeland Security orders 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition. Forbes magazine. U.S. Army overdeployed and intentionally shrunk. Army Times. Clergy recruited by government to quell operations. That's KSLA TV, Channel 12. Which actually, I think that's where that picture was. Somebody, I don't know why that's really. KSLA, that rings a bell for some reason. I don't know what they've reported before. I think they've reported something important, but they also link the executive order 13603. They have the whitehouse.gov page for it, and then they also have the PDF for it linked. So it says update May 10th, 2016. We'll get to that. Basically, we're going to look at this article from Snopes.com that says ICE doubt. A habitual, basically they're saying this guy lies, the guy that runs the site. So don't really need to read all this shit. But claim an Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent left a suicide note warning of looming mass disarmament and collapse in the United States. And they put the rating as false. On May 9th, 2016, the unreliable website Superstation 95 claimed, _ that an Immigration and Customs enforcement agent left a suicide note in New York City warning that a number of frightening conspiracy theories were about to come to pass. So, first, what we need to realize here is the wording. The wording is already kind of suspicious, the way that they wrote this. They said the unreliable website, Superstation 95, claimed... That's kind of something that you say when you're trying to smear somebody really hard.
Snopes is smearing all the fucking time, so...
Yeah. I don't like Snopes. They kind of... Most of their writers have this, like, uppity kind of thing going where
we're right.
Like,
CNN's right.
We know what we're saying, and it's just like, you really don't, though. Like, just because there's not a picture of this note doesn't mean that this note fucking doesn't exist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just don't like that wording right there. The unreliable website Superstation 95 claimed... That's your first sentence, okay? You need to at least try to explain a little bit better, like, what the note was about, but then they go and basically copy and paste what, you know, is coming. So...
Yeah, exactly. It's like they think they know everything over there.
Yeah, it's really weird. But...
And, like, I see people look at Snopes as the source for everything legitimate.
Yeah. Which, I mean, in some instances, Snopes has been super fucking accurate. Like, a lot of the stuff that they do post is actually, like, realistic. Like, but this was just, like, the second they got a chance, like, immediately they said, this is the only motherfuckers talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, an illegitimate website. And it's like... Relax, man. Like, I understand that you think it's fake, but I mean, shit, you don't have to sit there and immediately flame somebody calling it an unreliable site. But
we can come back on you.
Yeah, but here's where they have a point. Basically, they say only Superstation 95 reported on the alarming details of suicide note purportedly left at the scene without any background information on how they came to be in the possession of such a sensitive document, which they did say how they got it. They said that they were talking to the police. They said that they were talking to the police within that police station. Not like they were talking to designated officials, but they were basically saying somebody came out and said this is what the note said. So that's not true. They're already kind of spreading a little bit of bullshit right there.
Alright, spreading.
They need to reach... That's the thing with Snopes. Like, it's like the people that write these articles just, like, read 2 sentences of it, and then they're immediately like, yep, this is bullshit. And it's like, you didn't even read the note well enough because you were so fucking upset that you completely missed out on the fact that they were saying that they were talking to somebody in there. They don't say who it was, and obviously, an anonymous source fucking stinks. They usually are bullshit. Of course. But you can't sit here and say, okay, you know, I don't know how they came into the possession of such a sensitive document. It's really not a sensitive document. It's a guy who wrote a suicide note, supposedly. And, if you think about it, there would probably not be a suicide note at the crime scene because they're saying that this guy killed himself relatively close to the place that he worked and that people were watching him go walk out there and shoot himself in the head. You think if somebody finds a suicide note, they're not just going to take that shit after they read it and see what the fuck it says, and then you're just like, oh shit, and then you go and report it to somebody?
Yeah, or take a picture of it.
Somebody probably still has it if it actually exists. I can see both sides. I can see that this note is fake. But what the note is saying is relatively correct. Like,
yeah.
They're spreading facts. I mean, they used actual, like, facts. So even if it's a fake note, which obviously that's fucked up to say, oh, this guy killed himself and wrote a note, that's obviously wrong. But the shit that was said in it isn't. I mean, all that shit is happening. Like, legit, go Google it. But I can also see they're watching this guy go out there and kill himself. They watch him kill himself. Somebody runs over there and tries to check on him. They call the police, but they take the fucking note.
Yeah.
And they don't let the police see it because maybe those other people knew about it too, because it's not like he's the only one that knows about it, you know what I'm saying? So, see, there's so many variables, and they don't mention that in this article, of course, because Snopes is very biased towards one segment of their viewership. Superstation 95, excuse me, is an online presence that is neither a, quote, superstation, end quote, nor a legitimate news source, but rather a repository of misinformation from Hal Turner, a white supremacist who was sentenced in 2010 to 33 months in prison for making death threats against 3 federal judges. Okay, listen, a white supremacist? Where's the facts for that?
Yeah, why don't they just say, oh yeah, he's in the KKK or something? Right? That's exactly what they should be saying, and that you can't make those accusations.
But I mean, this website is shut down.
Oh, it was working for a minute.
I'm on it right now. It says Superstation 95 news closed, killed by phony Washington Post Russian propaganda / fake news false
Really?
allegation.
That was working like a month ago.
Yeah, Superstation 95 came online in October 2015 and skyrocketed into to over 2 million visitors per month quickly as the U.S. presidential election got heated. Sites like ours, which opposed Hillary Clinton, got smeared as Russian propaganda and fake news. So there's that. But
that's interesting, though. That is
interesting.
Maybe that. See, everything's bullshit.
Yeah.
Huh.
But they closed it down yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That last post was made on May 23rd, 2017. That was yesterday. Interesting, man. Maybe this antinews.in is basically them just under a new name. I'd be interested to know about that, but
possibly
because they did update this article when we go back to it, and we'll hear their rebuttal about this Snopes article. So basically, they're saying he's a white supremacist, was sentenced in 2010 to 33 months in prison for death threats against 3 federal judges. That more than likely actually happened, so he is a little bit shady. Beginning in late 2015, Turner's Superstation 95 began spreading alarmist hoax and conspiracy theories on social media, frequently building upon legitimate tragic or frightening events with falsified details. Okay, that's a big claim. What do you got to back up with it? Amongst the most widespread of these were claims that a large group of Muslim men fired upon campers and hikers in California, that Fukushima radiation caused severe mutations in marine life, that cargo ships mysteriously ground to a halt and signaled an imminent economic catastrophe, that a deadly Las Vegas strip crash involved a driver shouting Allahu Akbar, that the San Bernardino shooting occurred because the shooter was offended by pork served at a holiday party shortly before the massacre, and that the Earth's magnetosphere collapsed for 2 hours. What do you have to think about that?
I don't know. I mean, the Fukushima thing, that I've researched into as well. That just hasn't been contained. It's spewing radiation. It's still spewing radiation to this day. I think that could cause cancer and other mutations to marine life. Nobody's ever... I don't think... Has anybody ever studied that?
I don't know. I actually have no idea.
Yeah. I'd be interested to find out if, I don't think that's completely far-fetched either.
I don't think so either.
I mean, the Earth's magnetic sphere collapsing.
That was probably bullshit.
That's probably... What was the other one?
They have 3 or 4 here. A large group of Muslim men fired upon campers and hikers in California. That's number 1.
We can easily verify that one.
Number 2 was Fukushima radiation. Number 3 is cargo ships mysteriously ground to a halt and signaled an imminent economic catastrophe. I don't know if that's true. That a deadly Las Vegas strip crash involved a driver shouting Allahu Akbar. That the San Bernardino shooting was occurring because the shooter was offended by pork at a holiday party, and that the Earth's magnetosphere was collapsed for 2 hours. Basically, the magnetosphere is more than likely bullshit. I mean, absolutely 100% bullshit.
Things would cease to be happening, I think.
Yeah, it would cause a problem.
Yeah, because all that the power would go out immediately.
Yeah, we would be out power like
for years.
Probably years, yeah.
Because our infrastructure is dog shit.
Yeah, it is.
They struggle to keep it running. Like if that shit gets turned off, they won't be able to turn it back on.
Yeah. But we then come to the Fukushima radiation. I mean, dude, okay, listen. So, that Russian town, what was that place called? Oh, shit.
Are you talking about,
the one where the nuclear reactor...
Chernobyl?
Yeah, Chernobyl. The wolves that live in Chernobyl have been,
huge.
like... Yeah, well, they're bigger than regular wolves, and they're also, like... The wolf population is thriving in that environment. So, I mean, radiation can affect animals in different ways. Marine life is very different. I mean, they live in an entirely different world. I mean, it's crazy to think that we're walking around on the fucking ground, and these guys are talking to each other. These big-ass whales are talking to each other. They have dialects. They can... they're smart creatures. That can affect a creature in many different ways. To sit there and say that
it's like it'll affect us.
Yeah, I mean, radiation. When we get exposed to radiation, it's fucking terrible. So, absolutely, that can fucking happen. That's actually the most unscientific thing I think I've ever seen. Snopes try to sit there and say that's not happening.
Radiation doesn't do shit. Yeah.
I mean, maybe there's no evidence for it yet, but there sure will be in the future. I mean,
it probably causes birth defects.
It could.
I think that's what happens, probably.
More than likely.
Well, when something's mating,
So basically, it says in the rest of this article, the site's claims span many conspiracy themes, but remain cohesive to their constant lack of credibility, accuracy, or respect for the victims of tragedies. As with
what makes a news site reputable?
Exactly. It's you basically choose whether or not it's reputable, and they chose to say that it's not. But I mean, if they did say the magnetosphere fucking stopped for 2 hours, then yeah, that's bullshit. But
how did it start back?
Yeah, but you can't, like, here's how news sites work. I've written for news sites, not like news, but like sports news. I've written for a site called Cover 32. They followed the NFL. What they made me do was, when I was writing opinion articles, they would force me to put Cover 32 does not stand by these comments, blah, 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 blah. News sites do that too. They can't 100% control whatever everybody says. I mean, it happens all the time. People are putting out false information all the time. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, ABC. I mean, all of these fucking companies do this shit. So what makes a company actually reputable? By saying you're reputable? I don't think this site ever claimed that, and if anything, they went out of their way to say these could be simply insane ramblings. And they said, hey, we don't know if this is true, but if it is, maybe you should think about it, but if not, then you're in no trouble. It's whatever you want to perceive it to be, and whether or not you think it's real, which that is reputable to me. And the fact that they sourced that fucking Obama document, that's reputable. They left a PDF link to it where you could read it. That's reputable. That's good journalism. I don't know, man. It's weird, but it says, as with prior topical yet fabricated information from the site Superstation 95, used an actual event, the death of an ICE agent, to add untruths that seem to have been written for the sole purpose of gaining page views. We contacted the New York Police Department on May 9th, 2016, and received the following statement in response. So, May 6, 2016, 10:49 hours. Police officers responded to a report of a person shot in the vicinity of West Street and Houston Street, Pier 40, located within the confines of 6th Precinct. Upon arrival, responding officers discovered a 42-year-old male with a gunshot wound to his head. EMS also responded to the location and transported the male to Lenox Hill Hospital, where he was pronounced deceased. There is no criminally suspected in regarding to the incident, and the investigation is ongoing. No note was found. Now, I want to know if the police actually said no note was found. If they said no note was found, then that'll be interesting, because then you can have two variables. There was no note, or someone took the note. So, either way, the consequences between having no note and maybe someone taking it are exactly the same, in my opinion. That's how Occam's razors works, people. But basically, we're going back to the original article that posted this this note and said, update May 10th, 2016, 10 p.m. EDT. The website Snopes.com has issued a declaration that our story is some sort of hoax, that we are somehow not a radio station, and attributed the story and this website to a former FBI National Security Agency asset named Hal Turner, whom she smears as a white supremacist. This is not the first time Snopes.com has made accusations against us simply because we have been giving exclusive source of politically incorrect news. And while we stand by our stories in every regard, this barrage of attacks by Snopes.com is becoming... They're basically saying this is bullshit. We address the Snopes.com accusations one at a time. Number one, no aspect of our story above is a hoax. What Snopes.com seems to take issue with is the existence and the content of a suicide note, which was revealed to us by the NYPD. The person at the NYPD who gave us this information did so after trying to get two other New York media outlets, one TV and the other a newspaper, to publish the story, and was rebuked within minutes by media contacts who said, quote, "We won't touch this with a 10-foot pole," end quote. The fact that the New York Police Department now claims there was no note found does not surprise us at all. NYPD has very close ties to the feds, and the feds have an intense interest in concealing or discrediting the information it contained. Number two, according to the FCC Licensing Bureau, 95.1 FM in New York City is the HD4 frequency for WNSH 94.7 FM are licensed by the FCC as shown here. Our story written by our news staff, number three, our story was written by our news staff, not anyone named Hal Turner. Number four, Mr. Turner was formerly a paying customer of this radio station from October 7th, 2015 through March 30th, 2016. He bought airtime from us for his personal show called The Hal Turner Show. Finances caused Mr. Turner to cancel his programming on our radio station and continue his show on WBCQ, International Shortwave, where he's on the air live from 9 to 11 p.m. on every Wednesday evening. Mr. Turner's website is halturnershow.com. He is welcome to return to our airways if his finances improve. Number five, Snopes.com claims Mr. Turner is a white supremacist. In reality, Mr. Turner worked for the FBI from 1993 to 2008, with his TOD as the Joint Terrorism Task Force from 2003 to 2008. His job was to infiltrate white supremacist groups to thwart violent criminal acts by such persons. The information came out when the Obama administration portrayed Mr. Turner in 2009 and arrested him for writing in 2009 what the government paid him $3,000 to say on Dateline NBC and Fox News Channel just 4 years earlier in 2005. After 3 trials, 2 hung juries, Mr. Turner was bankrupted by legal fees, was appointed a public defender who threw the case, resulting in Mr. Turner's conviction. For Snopes.com to smear Mr. Turner as a white supremacist when federal court records showed the exact opposite is a prime example of the utterly shoddy research and reporting provided by Snopes.com. The criticism and Snopes.com outright falsehood about this story and others have been written mostly by Miss Kim A. Laparanca, age 37, born 1979. They give an address. Those of you who are offended by this type of journalism misconduct may wish to contact Miss Caparia or Capolara or whatever.
Yeah, Snopes is bullshit, so.
Oh, well, yeah, I know. But they're basically saying you can contact her in a lawful, non-threatening, non-violent manner to complain about her shoddy journalism. Please do not harass this ignorant person.
It just sounds like a bad idea to even put their shit out there.
Yeah, I know. Commit any intimidation. None of us need that, and it will only result in serious legal trouble. So they put a telephone number, and you can contact her at AOL, or you can contact her at her email.
Her phone.
Yeah, or her phone. You may be interested in knowing at some point, and perhaps to this day, she was employed by Facebook with contact phone number in the past 605-308-7300. In closing, we at Superstation 95 work very hard to get real news that the public can make use of. We do not filter our news based off of political incorrectness. We do not.
Interesting that she worked at Facebook.
Yeah, I know. We do not,
because they're the kings of fake news.
Yeah, true. We do not filter our news based upon political correctness. We stand by this story and all the stories we write, and we hope that you, the reader, can hear the ring of truth in our reporting as we continue to uncover exclusive information and report the facts. To that end, we have now, quote, exposed, end quote, the journalistic writing of Miss Kim, blah, 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 as false, and we hope that Snopes enjoys a dose of its own medicine. Miss, blah, 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 and others at Snopes, put themselves out in the public domain and hurl criticism and accusations at us and many other fine people. Since they put themselves out in the public domain, they are public figures who can be publicly criticized. Our goal with this update is to achieve that. Anyone else at Snopes.com who performs similar acts against us can expect the same treatment. So there's another update that we can read, and then we'll basically we'll be done here. It's pretty long, so we'll get to basically the short bit of it. This was another update on May 12th, 2016. I guess it hasn't been updated again. It was posted on this site not too long ago. Despite our clear rebuttal above, yet another journalist chose to attack us and this story, repeating misstatements by Snopes.com and adding some new outright falsehoods of their own. In a rawstory.com article entitled Right-Wing Loon Turns Agent Suicide into Conspiracy Hoax, writer Travis J. Geddes claims that this story is a hoax and that, quote, essentially recycles last year's Jade Helm 15 conspiracy theory, and goes on to claim, number one, Superstation 95 is neither a radio station nor a news site. This website is linked to white supremacist and former Fox News regular Hal Turner. Quote, Superstation 95 is linked to neo-Nazi Hal Turner, who frequently appeared on Sean Hannity's Fox News program. And number four, begging Americans to rise up and overthrow the U.S. government before it's too late. With regard to number one above, shown in our rebuttal in the original Snopes hit piece, the FEC Licensing Bureau shows the licensing of 95.1 FM is linked above. As to item number two, we made clear to our rebuttal to Snopes.com that Mr. Turner was merely a paying broadcaster who ended his 6-month relationship with Superstation 95 on March 31st. He does not own, operate, or contribute to the content of this website. Moreover, rawstory.com repeats the same false, misleading, and defamatory claims that Turner was/is a white supremacist, which in fact, as shown above, Turner was with the FBI from 1993 to 2008, and in his final 5 years was with the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force to infiltrate white supremacist groups to thwart acts of violence. All this proved by the federal court records, yet Travis Geddes from Raw Story went ahead and ignored these facts nonetheless. Speaking of court records, both Snopes.com and RawStory.com mentioned that the contact attorney for this website, quote, is the same as Turner's criminal defense attorney, end quote. We wonder if it ever occurred to Snopes.com or Raw Story that, as media outlet, Superstation 95 was mortified that Turner was arrested and imprisoned for an editorial, and when he was wrongfully convicted, that it was us who suggested Turner sneak out our law firm because we knew that they would help. Schlamstone and Dolan is a very large law firm with dozens of attorneys. The firm accompanies 3 floors at the 26th Broadway in New York, the old Standard Oil building in the heart of the financial district. They usually handle commercial litigation, but Turner's case, because it was a dire affront to the rule of law and a direct attack by the government upon freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Even worse, Raw Story's writer Travis Geddes went on to say in item number 3, which was that they were linked to a neo-Nazi. Above that, Turner is a neo-Nazi, then utterly fabricated a claim that Turner, quote, frequently appeared on Sean Hannity's Fox News program, end quote. This has proved to be a flat-out falsehood. One of these editors here at Superstation 95, Christian Rivera, telephoned Hal Turner to inform him of these 2 articles and asked for Turner's response. Quote, never once in my entire life did I appear on the Sean Hannity's Fox News Channel program, said Turner. In
Bullshit.
fact, the only appearance Turner ever made on Fox News Channel was at the program At Large with Geraldo Rivera. And when he appeared on that program, Turner did so with the direct approval of the FBI Joint Terrorism Task Force because it was part of an effort to uncover who murdered the family of federal judge Joan Humphrey Lefkoe, I guess, in Chicago, which had taken place just days before. Video of Turner's response on Fox News Channel is available from YouTube from various uploaders such as this one. So we're going to go ahead and look at that.
I gotta get going soon though, but
Yeah,
you want to continue on your own, or?
yeah, I'll pretty much just read the rest of this article. So he's going to go bye-bye because he has to go to work and he has to go to sleep. So,
But yeah, before I end this, I mean, it's not too far off. I mean, me and Brandon have done our own fact-checking on this shit for years now.
yeah.
I mean, what I was going to say was, it makes a lot of sense that these things are coming out. I just don't know if they came out in this way, but because they're already in the open. People have been talking about this.
Yeah, for like 10 years. It's been
Yeah.
a long time.
Yeah. Alright. Well, see ya.
Yeah, you too.
User disconnected
So
from
there
your
goes
channel.
the guy, the man, the myth, the legend. So basically I'm going to finish off this article basically explaining what they said. Quote, folks who view the YouTube video need to understand that at that time I was operating under deep cover for the national security of this country in an active murder investigation. What they are seeing as an intelligence operation by and for the FBI and the federal government, Turner said. All of this came out in federal court in 2009 and 2010, where that video was actually played for one of the 3 juries. For Raw Story to use my work with the FBI against me is disgraceful, he went on. With respect to item number 4, wherein Raw Story writer Travis Geddes claimed our story suggested the dead agent's note was begging Americans to rise up and overthrow the U.S. government before it's too late, you only need to scroll up and see it said nothing of the sort, which it didn't say that. The third block quote from the agent's suicide note reports his note as saying, if the American people knew what this government is planning, they would rise up and overthrow it, end quote. Which is true, that is what they quoted. Nowhere did the agent or our story, quote, beg the American people to rise up and overthrow the government before it's too late, end quote. It simply isn't there, and for Travis Geddes to assert otherwise shows that he is either lacking in reading comprehension, a retard, or despicable, twisted manipulator of the facts. So, obviously right here, that's just fucking uncalled for. Reading comprehension, a retard, or despicable twist manipulator of facts. So, that's fucked up. You shouldn't call somebody a retard just because they said something ignorant. You can call them ignorant. You can't call them a retard. That's fucked up. I'm not a big fan of that. But I digress. The point that they made was fair. He did lie. So, this is beyond shoddy journalism on part of Travis Geddes. In our viewpoint, it is outright journalistic fraud, which you can be sued for. If this is the type of half-assed reporting that routinely appears on rawstory.com articles, then they just shot their credibility straight to hell. Knowing what our article actually said and comparing it to what Raw Story reported, how can any rational person believe anything Raw Story ever publishes? They appear to make things up as they go along. The outright falsehood about this story appearing in rawstory.com were written by Travis Geddes. Those of you who are offended by this type of journalism misconduct may wish to contact Mr. Geddes in a peaceful, lawful, non-threatening, and non-violent violent manner to complain about his shoddy journalism. So you can call his phone, you can write to him. Please do not harass this ignorant person, and please, please, please do not make any threats, commit any intimidation, or break any law at all. None of us need that, and it will only result in a serious legal trouble. You may be interested in knowing at some point, and perhaps to this day, Mr. Geddes was employed by the Cincinnati Enquirer newspaper. If he is still employed there, we would argue that this newspaper to make a very serious review of any news stories written by this person, since his ability to check facts accurately report do not seem to exist. In closing, we at Superstation 95 work very hard to get real news to the public. Basically, we do not filter our news based off of political correctness, blah, 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 blah. The fact that Snopes.com went to great lengths to attack us, and now the radical left-wing cesspool of RawStory.com has chosen to do the same, calls to mind the saying, "Thou doth protest too much." This seems to be an awful lot of media exposure in effort to unleash as these outlets claim our facts are wrong. Why such a strenuous response to something which is allegedly incorrect? Perhaps, as you may be starting to see, our story is correct. The power that be know it, and they're pulling out all the stops to cover it up. Sorry, folks, the cat's out of the bag, and nothing you folks in government or your henchmen in the mass media can do will cover this up. We stand by this story and all the stories we write, and hope that you, the reader, can hear the ring of truth in our reporting as we continue to uncover exclusive information and report the facts. To that end, we have now, quote, exposed the journalistic writing of Mr. Travis J. Geddes as false and hope that Raw Story enjoys a dose of its own medicine. Mr. Geddes and other at rawstory.com put themselves in the public domain and hurl criticism and accusation at us and many fine people. They put themselves in the public domain. They are public figures who can be publicly criticized. Our goal with this update is to achieve that. Anyone else at Raw Story who performs similar acts against us can expect the same treatment. Since this story has become dated, we have decided to incorporate our Snopes and Raw Story rebuttals seen above into a news story for publication later today, May 12th. The politically incorrect left wing is clearly on a warpath that certain government plans seem to be exposed. It thus seems to bring this issue to the fore rather than let it go quietly into the night. The more they try to cover this up or discredit it, the more we will cover it. Now, what I would like to say, though my partner is gone, I mean, guys, you can believe it or you cannot believe it. Either way, there's no evidence on each side. They're basically what Snopes did was say, hey, we think this is bullshit. And then, Superstation 95 came back and said, hey, we think that you are throwing stones in a place that you shouldn't be. And Snopes did technically try to warp this story, because I will read it again. Only Superstation 95 reported on the alarming details of the suicide note purportedly left at the scene without any background information on how they came to be in possession of such a sensitive document. They didn't say they came into possession with it. They said that somebody was trying to get media conglomerates to look at the note, and then they wouldn't. They quoted it as saying they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. The person that they talked to. Now, this is an anonymous person, so you can make any assessment you truly want about this situation, but what remains true and what remains valid is the fact that you can take this story with a grain of salt, or you can really look into what most was quoted. I mean, FEMA camps are a thing. They're here. They are real. Buying a bunch of bullets was true. They have a relatively good source for most of these. They quoted New York Daily News, taken to Lenox Hospital, New York Post. I don't really like that Wikipedia article here, but I digress. National Guard being stripped of crew, serviceable weapons, and communications gear. Republic Broadcasting, John Stadmiller. Jesus, I'm fucking out of my mind. Department of Homeland Security orders 1.6 billion rounds of ammunition. Forbes magazine. That happened. U.S. Army overdeployed and intentionally shrunk. Army Times. That can be technically biased, but that is technically what is happening. Clergy recruited by governments to quell opposition. KSLA, TV Channel 12. Executive Order 13603. They have a White House link to it, and they also have the PDF. What is mentioned in this note is true. A lot of it. Whether or not they came into possession of it because somebody committed suicide and they really wanted this to come out, if that was faked by this news organization, then that is really fucked up. You shouldn't do that. That's really fucked up. And you could be charged criminally for doing so. But if they didn't, and whoever they talked to really had this note, maybe they got it before the police came. I don't know. If they really did, and this is really true, man, we might be in a little bit of trouble here. And Snopes.com would be in trouble. And this is actually, in my opinion, the best comeback that anybody's ever had to Snopes.com. I mean, this was very well written. It was very pointed. They pointed out a lot of good things. They made sure to clear up inconsistencies that Snopes had, and they never responded ever again. They just used Raw Story. Raw Story came out and said, hey, this is bullshit. And then they lied, and that guy misrepresented quotes. He quoted things that weren't, quoted whatsoever. And he was also saying that this site made an allegation that you need to overthrow the government, which they didn't. If anything, they went out of their way to say these could be simply insane ramblings. So, I think this Snopes article is bullshit. And I think this one's a little bit more reputable. Just the way that they worded things. However, when they said retard, that kind of got me a little bit pissed off. That makes you look really bad. You shouldn't call people retards. But yet again, they said that they were basically working off of being, they're not trying to be politically correct is what they were saying, which they said over and over again, and then they dropped retard. Either way, that's kind of bad journalistically. What I want to note is that you can believe what you want to believe. You don't have to believe anything that this article said. You don't have to believe anything that Snopes said. It's basically whatever you want to believe. But what is important is the fact that they quoted very reputable people. I mean, straight up .gov websites for that Obama bill. I mean, it's very, very hard to dispute that. And that is why, not many of these sites tried to respond, because they really didn't. They didn't do a good job. It was really shoddy, like they said. It wasn't very well written, this Snopes article. I didn't see the Raw Story article. I should read it to see what they really said. I don't know where it is. Maybe it's linked somewhere, but maybe they took it down. Who knows? What is important is you can believe what you want to believe. You don't have to believe this. You don't have to believe the Snopes article either. But there are real facts within this. If they did fake this note, they're in trouble. But if they didn't, then that was good journalism what they did. Because this article was very well written. It was very poignant. They made great points. They explained what happened very well. I don't have any problem with this article, but the whereabouts of this note would be interesting to know, and who gave them this information would be interesting to know. All of that great jazz. But Snopes is a little bit shaky. They're a little bit weird. They definitely got taken for a ride there, that's for sure. But anyhow, thank you for watching this video. If you want to subscribe, go ahead and do it. If you want to check out my Patreon, you want to keep this channel running, go ahead and do it. Either way, I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, share this around. See you guys later.